I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be, why do you want what you want? Well, I've got a couple of emails that I'm going to go through, but a big part of what I'm going to talk about today is like what I'm all about as a coach is I want to help you and everybody else who watches these videos or reads my book or reads the articles on my website. I want to help you get to a place in your life where you're comfortable in your own skin. And that means that you're comfortable doing what you want to do and making the choices that you want to make without me or someone else trying to impose their belief system on how you should think, do, and act. At the end of the day, I found personally in my own life that I'm happiest when I'm doing the things that I want, when I want, and with who I want. But the majority of the people in this world don't get to live their lives from that perspective because they're so busy trying to lead a life that's what their environment has scripted for them, or their friends or their family or society has scripted for them, or their religion has scripted for them. And at the end of the day, when you look around the planet, there's 6.5 billion of us here, and there's all kinds of diverse choices. Some people really believe strongly in marriage and being with one person their whole entire life. And over the course of my life and doing what I do, I can count on one hand the number of couples that I've met that have been together for several decades, and they're really happy, and they're really in love, and they really adore one another still. The average marriage that I see, and you can see this with your own eyes and ears, is people are just kind of hanging in there because they feel like they got to stay in that relationship. I mean, when you look worldwide, divorce rate's over 65%. That should tell you about something. And at the end of the day, most people, their views on marriage itself are really just the views that they got from somebody else, or that somebody taught them, or that their pastor or their person in church or their religion told them that there was a certain way for them to live. But out of those people that are ascribing to that belief system and that are married and are following supposedly what they were taught, how many of them are really in love? How many of them are really happy? The average human being tends to have a herd mentality. Whereas a great book to read, by the way, is a book called The Tipping Point. It's like 55-60% of the population, they have a herd mentality. In other words, they're just going to do what everybody else does and not think for themselves. And my whole goal in my mission in life is to teach you to think for yourself and make your own choices based upon what feels right for you. I've got friends of mine, I got one of my buddies, very successful at meeting and picking up women and getting laid. He has a girlfriend, he's got children with her, and he's still banging 4 or 5 other girls on the side and totally lying to his girlfriend. And I gotta wonder, after all these years, she has to know. She's got to be bullshitting herself to some degree, thinking that she was actually able to change him. And so he lives this lie with her because at the end of the day, 20 years that I've known this particular guy, that's just the way it is. To him, it's the challenge of the chase. He sees a hot girl, and especially like if she's not really that into him, he wants to see if he can get her, if he can land her, if he can hook up with her. And that's his life. That's his truth. The only thing that I take issue with as a friend of his is the fact that he's misleading this woman that is raising his children and has had his children, thinking that he's in an exclusive relationship with her because he's too fearful to go and live the life that he really wants, because he's afraid that he won't be able to be accepted and he won't get what he wants. So he in essence, he lives a lie. That's not the kind of life or lifestyle that I want. And like when I was younger, I believed the same things everybody taught me that I was taught. I was born and raised Catholic. You're supposed to get married and be with that one person your whole entire life. And I went to a Catholic high school. And when I look at all the 150 or so people that I went to high school with, only a small fraction of them are actually still together and married. And I only have one buddy that went to this high school who I would consider having the kind of relationship and the kind of marriage that I would like if that was something that I had made a personal choice with. But I got a quote that I want to share with you because there's a lot of different topics. I mean, our problem as a society, what I see as a big deal, is that when somebody has a belief system, they feel better about themselves if they can get other people to ascribe to that belief system, or they can win them over. And they don't have much of a tolerance for people that think and act differently. You look at like gay couples and how they want to get married and be treated like everybody else, But you got ultra-conservative religious groups who are like, no, that's our label. You can't have that label. It's between a man and a woman. Well, the way I look at the world is nothing happens by accident. Everything happens for a reason. You got lesbian couples, you got gay dudes, you've got guys that like to have 2 or 3 girlfriends and they live together and they raise a family, but they can't all get married to each other because the law doesn't allow it. But at the end of the day, that's their choice. If they want to get married, I don't give a fuck. If a dude wants to marry his fucking blow-up sex doll, I don't really care. If he wants to marry a broom, I don't care. Let him marry a broom. If he wants to marry his lawnmower, great. I mean, there's different strokes for different folks, man. It's like, the way I look is you got to live and let live. And a leader leads by example. He doesn't go around legislating or intimidating or forcing other people to live and believe the same way. I mean, there's plenty of religious groups all over the world that are very hostile and murderous to people that don't believe and think the same way. I mean, you look at some of the stuff that's going on in the Middle East, you've got ultra-extremist groups that, I was just reading an article the other day, it was over in Syria, that a couple was getting married and they had this wedding party and everybody's celebrating, they're playing music and they're singing together, and they went over and basically said, you can't sing and you can't have music, you can't do it, it's un-Islamic. And basically made the guy who was running the wedding agree to go to a bunch of religious classes or else they were going to kill him and his whole family. It's like, come on, man. I mean, seriously, dude. It's like, is their belief system that fragile to where they feel like they got to forcibly impose themselves and their will? I mean, it's like you look at the history and that's just gone on in all different cultures for a long time. At the end of the day, we're all divine beings having a human experience, and we're born on this planet because it is the Lord's will. And we have the freedom, and it's our divine right to choose to live how we want to live, as long as it doesn't impinge upon or infringe upon the free will of another. You look at our politicians. You look at all this debacle with the healthcare system. I'm sure there was a lot of well-meaning behind it, but when you have the president and hundreds of members of the Congress and the Senate don't even read the fucking 10,000-page bill, and they pass it, and it's a total fucking train wreck, it's like, what do you expect? I mean, the way these people think, they go to these Ivy League universities, they think they're better than all the rest of us. They think they are morally superior than the rest of us. And the majority of them, the way they think is that the rest of us, we're too stupid and incompetent to make our own decisions, so we need central planners like them to make all the decisions for us. They don't respect our divine free will of choice, even though they say they're all about freedom. Bullshit. They're all about Marxism and socialism and rule by the few over the many because they think they're better than everybody else, even though they're some of the most fucked up, dishonest people in the world. It's like I don't have any fucking respect for these people. It's like they couldn't fucking leave me across the street. It's like, give me a fucking break. And that's a whole other topic, but I got a quote. Let's go ahead and get into it. And I got a couple of emails that I'm going to go through with you. So it says, most people tend to adopt their values, goals, and belief systems from other people without ever thinking about or considering what they really want and what's important to them. People tend to have very strong opinions around the topic of sex, marriage, God, politics, relationships, freedom, and the purpose and meaning of life. When someone comes along who does not believe or ascribe to the same model of the world, fearful people who don't strongly believe in what they believe will often become angry, hateful, and attack them verbally and sometimes physically. Too many people in this world do not respect the freedom, free will, and divine right to the personal choice of another out of their own weakness and fragile belief system. They therefore seek to silence dissenting points of view in order to feel good about themselves. We should all respect the beliefs of others and their divine right to choose what's right for them, instead of trying to take that right away through legislation, force, or intimidation. So let's get in this first guy's email. And he says, "Hey Corey, I'm glad I found your material. Please don't take offense to what is written in this email, and I'm not questioning your credibility." Really? Then why'd you say it? That's the same kind of thing when someone says, "Oh, I wouldn't lie to you. I wouldn't fuck you over. I'm a Christian." Really? It's like, come on. Because truth doesn't need any explanation. It simply is. It's self-evident. But the fact of the matter is that's exactly what you're doing. You're questioning my credibility, and that's why you put it in there, even though you say that's not why you put it in there. It's like you see our president. He's fucking doing shit like that all the time. He says one thing and he does another. He says, but there are some things I have trouble with doing and want clarification from you. I know you're the type of guy that will help me out, though. Your material has opened my eyes to what I've been doing wrong. I've read your book online and realized that I was doing some things right, but also learned that there was a great deal that I am still doing wrong. That's why I say truth is self-evident. That's why I put these videos out there. That's why I put the articles out there. And even for people that don't want to spend the $10 on my Kindle edition, they can subscribe to the email list on my website and they can read my book for free. It's like because I put it out there. Because it's self-evident. You don't see anybody else out there offering their best stuff for free in videos and articles on the website, or even giving their ebook for free. You got to spend thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars to learn some of their best stuff. He says, I've ordered your book and plan on reading it over and over again because what you say makes a lot of sense. Again, I speak truth. You can think I'm totally full of shit. I have no credibility at all. Just apply what I teach because you will see it. And just like you've obviously been reading my ebook, you realize that what you were doing wrong and why women were acting the way they were acting and why you weren't getting the success that you wanted. He says, I'm 21 years old and I'm serious about my faith in God. Even though there are moral points that I disagree with, I still think that you know what you're talking about. And at the end of the day, you're 21 years old, you don't have much life experience yet, and the belief system that you have about rules and religion and sex and dating, all those things, that was given to you by somebody else. So my question to you is, deep down, do you really feel in your heart of hearts that you've been told the truth? Do you really feel in your heart of heart that you believe what it is that you believe? Or are you just believing this way, thinking this way because somebody else that you gave your power away to told you that things were a certain way? I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm telling you to figure out what your own personal truth is. And if it feels right for you, then awesome, fucking do it. A leader leads by example, not by force. Sun Tzu said that about 2,000 years ago. He says, I won't go into detail, but something I believe in and am committed to is staying a virgin until I marry and to stay married to the same woman for the rest of my life. Well, what happens if after 10 years she cheats on you and she starts screwing around with another guy? Then what? What happens if after 10 years she doesn't want to fucking touch you and she's not interested in sex? Or after your kid, after 20 years of raising children together, you find that you don't have anything in common, you don't even like hanging out with each other. You can go to the mall or any restaurant and see couples that are sitting around, one's reading the paper, the other one's reading a magazine or doodling on their smartphone or other electronic device, and they're not even talking to one another. It's like most people, they stay in a marriage just because they don't want the label of having been divorced. But yet they're fucking miserable and they're not happy. And therefore, since they're not happy, they don't take care of their bodies, they get fat, they get out of shape, they get sick all the time, they don't go after the things they really want in life, and they make themselves miserable. Like I said earlier, the divorce rate's over 65%. It's not about staying married to one person just to say, hey, I did it. I lived my life and I stayed married to one person and we tolerated each other. You want to be with somebody who celebrates you. And sometimes in life, things don't work out. Sometimes your goals and values are no longer aligned. Sometimes that happens to a lot of couples. They get married and they raise a family together, and then once they're empty nesters, they're looking at each other going, who the fuck are you? And they don't have anything in common. They don't enjoy doing the same kinds of things. They've grown, they've evolved over time, and they end up splitting up. I have a lot of clients, and they're in their 50s, 60s. They were married for a lot of years, and they find themselves single again. And they all say the same thing. God, I wish I had done this a long time ago. You look at like somebody like Tony Robbins. He spent almost 15 years being married to his first wife. And he knew, I think he said after 4 years, he knew that he shouldn't be with her anymore. But he stayed in another 7, 8 years. This is the most successful success coach in the world, and he bullshitted himself for 7 or 8 years. And he's since gotten remarried to a really cool chick, and they've been together, I don't know, maybe 10 years at this point. How do you know he's not bullshitting himself at this point? He's already had a history of doing that. Maybe things are really that great, maybe they're not. But, at the end of the day, it's like you learn from somebody like that. It's just like you learn from me, and you apply the things that work in your own life, and you live your own truth. It's like, don't try to live your life according to other people's expectations. He says, I want to marry a woman that shares my values, that's very important. You got to have the similar goals, similar values. You got to want the same things. You got to believe the same kinds of things. He says, I don't want a girlfriend or girlfriends. I want a wife who I can call my best friend and live happily ever after with. Well, you don't go and meet somebody and say, hey, let's get married, or hey, will you be my girlfriend? That's just not how it works, dude. It's a process. And the second email that I get into, you'll see that. Is an older guy who's dating a woman basically half his age. And he realized that truth. He realized it's a process. And you're going to have to learn to become good at picking up women. You're going to have to get good at dating women. And you're going to have to get good at getting them to fall in love with you to the point where they want to be in a relationship with you. It's a process. And if you try to, you can't shortcut that process. That's just the bottom fucking line. He says again, please do not take offense, but you yourself have a failed marriage and have yet to be in a significant long-term marriage relationship. Well, I don't look at the fact that I was married in my 20s as a failed marriage. It was a fucking mistake. I should have never got married in the first place. But I was like you. I didn't fucking know anything, and I certainly didn't have a good example at home or anybody in my family for that matter. It's just I went and got married because everybody else was getting married. My ex-girlfriend, my ex-wife and I, it's like every other weekend we were going to weddings. And people were like, when are you guys going to get married? I don't know. When are you going to get married? And I had all these women that I worked with, and they're like, oh, you'd be a fool if you let her go. And I'm just going, but I don't feel, it doesn't feel right. It's like deep down, it's like, oh, you're an idiot, you just got cold feet. And so I listened to them. And even after I bought the engagement ring, I remember sat in my bed like all afternoon just looking at it. Going, I'm going to take this thing back. This is crazy. I spent like $3-4 for it, I think it was. I was like, this is nuts. It's like, I can't do this. And then it's like later that night, I talked myself into it. And then I went ahead and made a dinner appointment with her parents to ask her father for permission and do all the right things that I was supposed to do. That's what chivalry is supposed to do, and that's what society teaches. And I just ignored that nagging feeling like, it's not right. But after being married for a year, I realized I made a mistake, and I shouldn't have done this. I should have listened to that little voice. And all those other people were really just trying to get me to live more like them. I mean, you think about it. When a certain group of people have a belief system, they feel better about their belief system if they can get other people to believe the same thing. And then in a lot of cases, people that don't agree the same way, especially like when it comes to people that believe a certain religion, they think there's something wrong with everybody else that does. It's like every religion on the planet, they think their way is the only true path to God. They're all like, my brother's a Scientologist, and they think everybody else is a bunch of fucking idiots, and unless you're a Scientologist, you're never going to get to that path of enlightenment and that path of nirvana. It's like everybody thinks it's like a leader leads by example. Is if you think living this way, being a virgin until you get married and all those things, then great. Go live that way and be a great example then. Don't go around the world trying to bend the world to your point of view and saying nasty things to other people that you don't know and you don't know about their life, judging them because they don't match your model of the world. He says, how do I know that your teachings will help me marry a woman for the long haul? Well, what I can do is I can help you meet a girl, date a girl, pick a girl up, get her to fall in love with you, communicate with her so you never argue and you get along and you have a good time together. But what I can't do is I can't teach you how to stay in love with that person the rest of your life. That's something that is going to be in your own heart. I'm not living your life. I'm not in your skin. I don't know you. I don't know what you want. I don't know what feels right for you. All I can do is give you the skills and the tools to get what it is that you want. And at the end of the day, sometimes that happens in life. Sometimes you're with a person for several years. And what I made to myself is I made a promise almost 16, 17 years ago when I left my first wife. I said, I will never get married again unless I'm 100% certain I'm with the right person and that I want to be married to that one particular person the rest of my life. If I have any doubt, if I'm like 99.9% sure, I'm not going to do it. And since that time, I've come close to 2 long-term relationships I had with 2 different women. There was a period of time where I was certain, like, this is definitely who I'm going to marry and I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. I felt that. But over time, my feelings evolved, things happen in the relationship, and after several years of dating, I decided to end that relationship and to move on. As hard as it was, as amazing and as gorgeous and as sexy and as awesome as these women were, it just didn't feel right. And I've learned to trust that. And whenever I've gone against my heart and what felt right, it always led me down a wrong path. That's what caused me to get married in the first place. I didn't trust my heart. I didn't trust my intuition. I didn't trust my own internal truth, because at that point in my life, I didn't believe in myself enough, and I wasn't confident enough in myself and what I knew about life and the world in order to make the right choice. But at the end of the day, it's from your mistakes that you learn. So he says one of the things that you advocate is to practice on multiple women and sleep with them, which you can see I have a conflict with. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, you've adopted somebody else's belief system that they taught you. And like for me, sex is just a natural thing. Two people get together and they're sexually attracted to one another. Women like sex just as much as men do. And anybody that tells you differently is totally full of fucking shit. Now, at the end of the day, sex is a natural byproduct of two people who have a sexual attraction to one another, getting together, hanging out together, having fun together, laughing. They get closer, they start touching, they start kissing. Kissing leads to heavy petting. Heavy petting leads to the clothes starting slowly coming off because they get aroused. And then boom, sex happens. It's just a natural byproduct. And the overwhelming majority of people, men and women who come to me, want to understand that process. They want to understand the process of successfully taking someone from picking them up to going out on a date to ultimately getting into a relationship, whether it means they live together or they get married. At the end of the day, it's up to you. The reason I'm not married at this point in my life is I just simply haven't gotten to a place where for several years in a row I was certain that I wanted to be with that person for the rest of my life. There was a period of time where I thought that I would, but obviously my feelings changed, and that's why I say you need to date somebody for 2 or 3 years before you go and get married, because a lot of times things will be great for a year or two, and then afterwards the relationship kind of runs its course. And when you look at, look at Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, the actors and actress. I think they have a cool relationship. They met, 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was. They fell in love, and they didn't get married. They lived together. They raised a family together, but they supported each other, and they had just had a different perspective, and that works for them. And I think, great. They're leading by example. They're living their life. They're not going around the world beating people over the head saying you need to live this way, you need to be this way. I think that's awesome. You got plenty of couples these days where you got one guy and he's living with 3 or 4 women. They would get married if they could, but legally the framework doesn't provide for that. And they're happy with that. You look at Hugh Hefner. He's happy with his life. He's been married, divorced several times. Not that I agree with everything that he does, because from some of the stuff that I've read, it seems like a lot of those women are just there for what they can get from him, and he knows that, and he doesn't really give a shit. I even saw him in an interview one time. He doesn't ask. He doesn't care. He gets what he wants. Everybody's happy. If that works for him, good for him. It's none of my fucking business. It's none of your business either. So he says, how can I still apply your principles without sleeping with multiple women? Well, you don't have to sleep with them if you don't want to, dude. Sex is a personal choice. I had a buddy of mine that I knew. He played in the NFL for a couple of years. And he was like you. He was ultra religious, but he believed no sex until marriage. And he was a virgin, even in like his mid-20s. And it was funny. He was a good-looking guy. He was very successful at what he did. And he had a great personality. Women loved him. And they were all like, I'm going to be his first. And it was a challenge to them because they wanted to see if they could be the first one to sleep with him. They really liked that. And it worked for him. But, at the end of the day, he would do everything but penetrate a woman physically. He'd finger them. He'd go down on them. He'd get a blowjob from them, but he would not penetrate them physically. And that was, at the end of the day, it was his belief system. And it worked for him. We busted his balls about it. It's like, so what? We still loved him. He's still a great guy. And that was his truth. And that's okay. He says, also, I work as an EMT and a volunteer as a firefighter, and my future career goal is to become a paid career firefighter. The reason I mention this is that 911 responders have a higher than average divorce rate, and I really wanted to see if you had any insights on this. At the end of the day, if you're going to get married, you got to have similar goals. You got to have similar values. You got to have similar belief systems. You got to really love hanging out with this person. Sex is a really small part of a relationship anyways. You're not going to be having sex all day long. You might have sex 4 or 5 times a day when you really love each other and you're really into one another. But when you're raising kids and you raise a family, you're getting them to and from school and daycare and all those things. Or you go on family trips. It's not, especially like when you got little kids around, it's kind of hard to have sex. It's like, I've dated plenty of women in my life that had little kids. We go on trips together, and it was all we could do to get 15, 20 minutes in the bathroom to go at it. Because it was the only time we could really get away with them. Especially if, you're on a trip or whatever, because you can't have like sex in the same room without them finding out about it or them sitting there watching going, gee, what are you guys doing? So we go in the bathroom and we lock the door, and it's like, you appreciate those moments that, and the kids going, knocking the door outside, what are you guys doing in there? What are all those funny noises? It's like, that's life. You do the best that you can. But like I said, if you apply the things that I teach, they will work for you. But like I said, I can't guarantee that you're going to want to stay in love with the same person for the rest of your life. I can teach you how to have a great relationship, an effortless relationship, free of nagging and arguments and drama and all that bullshit. But at the end of the day, you might find yourself after a certain period of time deciding that you really don't love them anymore and you don't want to be with them anymore. What happens if you really care about your wife and you adore her, but on a scale of 1 to 10, she was only really a 7 or 8 in your eyes? And after being married for 10 years, you meet a woman who knocks your fucking socks off and you're completing each other's sins and you connect in a way that you never connected with your wife. Then what do you do in that situation? That's why it's important to have life experience. That's why it's important to date a lot of people, to figure out what you want. Because when you're young and you're 21 years old, you don't know what you don't know. And right now, you're trying to find a woman who will conform to your model of the world that, at the end of the day, which is not really your model of the world. It's what you were taught by somebody else. Again, just like the title of the video. Why do you think the way you think? Why do you want what you want? Do you know why you want what you want? Have you ever really given any thought to it? That's something to think about. So I got a quote that I want to read, and this one's from Marianne Williamson. And I love this quote. It's one of my favorite ones. And it says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do, and we were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in every one. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I think that's absolutely beautiful. So let's get into the second email. And this is from a guy who's obviously a lot older than the guy who wrote the first email. And these are his experiences with a younger woman, what he's learned over the course of his life. He says, hey Corey, I bought your book and I listened to your audio courses in the members area. I also have been watching your YouTube videos and your shit is rock solid. I teach truth and you see yourself that it works for you. He says, let me tell you a little story. I'm a 50-something-year-old fat guy. I just had gastric bypass surgery, so the weight is falling off right now, boosting my confidence. And I've been seeing a 26-year-old goddess. Good for you, dude. It's your fucking birthright. He says she is a 12 out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. Awesome. Obviously, you really like this girl. And everyone tells her how beautiful she is. And I met her through a mutual friend at a party this past January. And we got along fantastic, joking, laughing, etc. However, the age and the difference in looks level kind of bothered me. And he said, puts in parentheses, old-fashioned, limited thinking. Again, I'm this fat, ugly old guy. No beautiful girl like that could like me, right? I mean, I did a video a while back called something about why looks don't matter to women, or why you can pick up women even if you're ugly. And I get all kinds of hateful comments, and it's from guys that their whole belief system is that they're fucking losers and they're too ugly to get a pretty girl. And here you got a 50-year-old dude who's fat and who considers himself to not be attractive with a goddess. And at the end of the day, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Well, I have a business in the entertainment industry, and she called me out of the blue last March and explained how interested she was in the industry and asked if she could intern over the summer. I said yes, and it blossomed from there. And I think she loved that I was the party wherever I went. Well, that tells me you're an alpha male. You're a leader. The word lead means to go first. So in other words, you knew a lot of people. And people looked at you as the leader. And at the end of the day, women are naturally sexually attracted to the most dominant males. And that doesn't mean you're a dickhead and a control freak. It just means that you're successful and you love what you do and you're successful at getting other people to like you. Women can't help but be drawn to that. That is total masculine energy. And so good job for you for getting to a place in your life where you can emanate that, where you can put off that vibe. He says, well, in August, she told me she was moving to Florida and asked if I would miss her, a test. And of course I would, and I think that's what she wanted to hear at the time. Well, anyway, I fell back into puss mode and tried to talk her out of leaving when I should have been supportive. I also bought her a gift to remember me. He says, what the fuck, LOL. When that happened, I started getting dry texts and no more calls. She backed way the fuck off. Well, I was all in a tizzy, but I had read your book and watched the videos just in time, and I knew that letting her miss me would take its course, and if things were to fire back up. Well, it did. And now she calls me and texts me all the time, and I let her do 78% of the communicating while I work on getting my new business off the ground. We go out all the time, and after all, it is her idea, LOL. Oh, and guess what else? She isn't moving now. She's submitting to your will, submitting just like it talks about in the Bible, because you know what you want, and you're going after it without fear. You're acting like a man is supposed to act. And very few guys in this world act that way. He says, we have a great time with me being the alpha in the relationship and her the chaser. She tried taking over the alpha role twice since we started hanging out again. And the first time I laughed at her in a funny masculine way, of course. And the second time I told her to enjoy her moment of glory for the next 5 minutes and then come back to reality. We laughed and went back to finish our evening, LOL. I'm glad we had that little break, however, because I think that break opened my eyes to the reality that she really is high maintenance and a lot of drama. See, that's the thing. It's like until you get to a place where you're dating a woman who just fucking knocks your socks off like this particular girl is, and you realize that as long as you show up and you act like a man and you handle your role appropriately, she's going to love you no matter what you do. And it's like once you realize as long as you act appropriately, she's not going to leave you because she's always chasing you, then you can really see her for what she is. And that gives you the power and the control. And it's like from this point on, it's like say even if you don't stay together with this girl, from this point on, you're never again going to let a woman's beauty and looks uncenter you to the point where you totally come unglued. He says, so now we just hang out, have fun, and hook up a little less often, but by my choice. Smooth. Implementing the reality of relationships is so easy. I've learned so much from your book and videos, and too bad it happened when I was 50. But how many guys my age hang out with a 26-year-old goddess because they can't get past their self-imposed limits? One thing I noticed in many of the letters that you read is guys don't seem to understand that pickup to relationship is a process and a progression of certain stages that is required. Absolutely. He says you don't treat your girlfriend the same way as someone you were picking up for a one-night stand. Similar, but it's not the same. Absolutely. Anyway, thanks for the info and taking on this much-needed project. I work on a college campus, and many of the guys that I am in contact with are in horrible relationships because they don't act like men. I refer them to your stuff all the time. Have a great day and holiday season. Absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing your success story. And to the guy who wrote the first email, it's like, that's what you see here. It's like, every guy has his own journey. And every guy has his own fears, limiting doubts, beliefs that he's trying to overcome. And same thing with women for that matter. Because I have a lot of women that watch my videos as well. But the key is to get to a place in your life where you love who you are and you love your life and you accept who you are and you're working at perfecting your life and your career and your business and the kind of people that you spend it with. And it's all about focusing on every area of your life, not just your relationship skills or your pickup skills or your dating skills, but you're focused on taking care of your body. You're focused on your purpose and your mission in life, doing something you really love and you really enjoy that brings you a great level of satisfaction. because at the end of the day, that's where you're going to spend most of your time. It means you also focus on your friendships, because you don't want to get into a relationship with somebody and then just totally blow off all your friends and family, and then things go sideways and you want to hang out with all of them again. The idea is to be a well-rounded and balanced person, because that's where you're gonna be at a place where your life feels full, it feels complete, and then you can really just focus on enjoying yourself and being grateful for what you have and what you're continuing to work towards creating in the future. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone session, Skype session, or email coaching, and you can do that by going to my website, clicking the products tab at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions. And I will talk to you soon.